Okay, in our last lesson, we learned how to diagram a sentence with two parts of speech, a noun and a verb. So we learned about nouns, that nouns are objects, so people, places, and things. Those are what we call concrete nouns. Nouns are also can be abstract, such as ideas or feelings. So we've got concrete nouns and abstract nouns. Verbs are action words. Jump, run, hit. We also have some linking verbs. Am, these right here are actually linking verbs. Be, being, been. Am, is, are, was, were. Now we're going to learn about helping verbs or auxiliaries. Often in English classes you'll hear the term helping verbs. We are going to stick with the term auxiliaries, though, in our tree diagramming. There are 23 helping verbs. I've divided these into three groups. Here's a column here, a second group here, and the third group here. It is helpful for you to memorize helping verbs, and let me show you why. In this sentence, let's say Steve ran. If I were to say identify your verb, circle your verb, you would say ran. Ran is the action word. And that would be correct. Now say our sentence was Steve should run. In this sentence, if I told you to circle the verb or identify the verb, you might be tempted once again to circle run. But that would be partially incorrect. And the reason is should as an auxiliary or a helping verb is part of the verb. And so you would actually circle should with it. Steve should run. We could have even said Steve should have. Steve should have run. In this sentence, we would, if I said circle the verb, you would circle once again the entire verb with its auxiliaries. So let's look at diagramming, or sorry, before we diagram, let's look at memorizing these and a helpful way to memorizing these helping verbs. You're not required to memorize them, however, I strongly suggest that you do. In our first column, we have our helping verbs be, being, been. Remember those three because they all start with the be. Be, being, been. Am, is, are, was, were. These are our 8 helping verbs, or our 8 linking verbs. I'm sorry, linking verbs. Be, being, been. Am, is, are, was, were. In this column, we have 3 pairs of helping verbs or auxiliaries that start with the same letter and rhyme. Can, could, shall, should, will, would. Once again, can, could, shall, should, will, would. In this group, we have 3 groups of 3. Each group starts with the same, all 3 words in each group start with the same letter. Has, have, had, do, does, did, may, might, must. Once again, has, have, had, do, does, did, may, might, must. Again, I strongly encourage you to memorize these helping verbs because it will help you when you are diagramming sentences. So let's go ahead and learn how to diagram sentences that contain auxiliaries. Let's start with she. In fact, before we actually do it with an auxiliary, let's do it without. She left. Our first step is to draw a line between our noun phrase and our verb phrase. Left is our verb, she is our noun. So there's our verb phrase and our noun phrase. And let's circle our verb, left, and underline our noun, she. And let's go ahead and diagram this sentence. At the top we put S for sentence, then we put NP for noun phrase, and VP for verb phrase. Our noun phrase only has one part of speech, our noun, which is she. Our verb phrase has one part of speech, which is our verb, left. Okay, very good. Now let's diagram the same sentence except with an auxiliary. She had left. So it's after the fact. We're saying she had left. Remember when I said in our example sentences a little bit earlier, I said when you identify the verb, to make sure that you identify the auxiliary with the verb. So in this sentence, if I said identify the verb, you would not just say left, you would say had left. So let's circle had left. Now remember, our first step is to draw a line between our noun phrase and our verb phrase. Sometimes it helps to circle your verb first in order to do that. So let's now draw a line. We've already circled our verb, and let's underline our noun phrase, or our noun. And now let's go ahead and diagram our sentence. At our top we have S for sentence. At our next level we have our noun phrase and verb phrase. On our noun phrase side we only have one part of speech, a noun, which is she. On our verb phrase side we have two. We have a verb and an auxiliary. So here we diagram two branches. We put AUX for auxiliary and V for verb. Our auxiliary is the word had, and our verb is the word left. Okay? Now, let's do the same sentence with one more auxiliary and see what happens. So remember, for your auxiliary, you draw one line from, let's actually just do a verb phrase here. We draw one line for the auxiliary and one line for the verb. So, had gone. In our last sentence, we said had left. So remember, from your verb phrase, you draw your branches. So let's go ahead and do the same sentence with two auxiliaries. She should have left. After the fact, she didn't leave, but she needed to, and so we say she should have left. Now I say identify your verb. You should know to circle the verb with its auxiliary or auxiliaries. In this sentence we have two. So let's circle our verb with its auxiliaries. Should have. Circle that a little bit better. Then we draw a line between our noun phrase and our verb phrase. And we underline our noun. Now to diagram this, we draw our S at the top, our two branches, our noun phrase and verb phrase. We have a noun, she. In our verb phrase now, this is the trick, is when you have two auxiliaries, we make sure that we draw a branch for each auxiliary and the verb. Write AUX for auxiliary, AUX again for our second auxiliary, and V for our verb. Our first auxiliary is should. Our second auxiliary is have. And our verb is left. She should have left. Okay, I'm going to give you two sentences to try on your own. Our first sentence is Greg might laugh. So go ahead and pause this video and make sure that you indicate the parts of speech. Make sure you circle your verb with its auxiliary, draw your line, underline your noun, and then diagram your sentence. So go ahead and pause this video now to do that. Okay, you should have again indicated your parts of speech and drawn your tree diagram on a separate piece of paper. If you haven't, go ahead and pause the video, make sure you do that. Now let's go ahead and do it together. So let's draw a line between our noun phrase and our verb phrase. Our verb phrase is might laugh. Our verb is might laugh together. Laugh with its auxiliary. So let's draw a line there. And then let's circle our verb. Might laugh. And underline our noun. Now you should have done this as your first step. Now let's go ahead and diagram our sentence. In our sentence we have two parts of speech, two branches, a noun phrase and a verb phrase. For our noun phrase, we have only one part of speech, a noun. Our noun is Greg. For our verb phrase, we have two parts of speech, a verb and its auxiliary. Our auxiliary is might, and our verb is laugh. Okay, let's go ahead and practice one more. This time we will have two auxiliaries. Let's say puppies should be petted. Puppies should be petted. Go ahead and indicate the parts of speech and draw your tree diagram on a separate piece of paper. Pause this video to do that now. Okay, let's go ahead and do this together now. Our verb is petted, but it has two auxiliaries, so we circle the entire verb with its auxiliaries, and we draw a line between our noun phrase and our verb phrase, and we underline our noun. Now let's go ahead and diagram the sentence. Have S for sentence at the top. We have an NP for noun phrase, VP for verb phrase. Our noun phrase contains one part of speech, a noun, which is puppies. Notice I didn't capitalize the P for puppies, even though it's capitalized up here. Again, you don't need to worry about punctuation or capitalization down here. Sometimes you'll see me capitalize it. It's just because I see it capitalized up there. It doesn't really need to be. So now let's go ahead and diagram our verb phrase. In our verb phrase, we have three parts of speech. We have two auxiliaries and one verb. Our first auxiliary is should. Our second is be. And our verb is petted. There you go. So now you have a chance to practice diagramming sentences with auxiliaries in the homework for this week. If you have any questions as you're doing that, feel free to watch this video again, or feel free to contact your teacher.